left over from a butcher shop. See if I can get a bullet out of it.
Of course, the myth is about teeth.
We have juices!
But Grant is going with the spirit of the myth, and that's a bullet made of biological material that will disintegrate on impact. And the benefit of bone is that it can be shaped more effectively than the teeth for a more aerodynamic result.
My masterpiece is complete.
Harry is also finished, but she's still feeling skeptical.
So I'm done with my 38 very special bullets, but the teeth don't have the same mass as the original bullets, so they're not going to have the same destructive force. They also aren't symmetrical, so I have a feeling accuracy is going to be a serious issue. Still, a teeth bullet. Cool.
It's a frustrating constant of commercial airline travel. Boarding the plane always seems to take longer than it should. But is it down to the back-to-front boarding system? Is it true that the method favoured by most airlines is the least effective? To find out, Captain Savage and co-pilot Heinemann have replicated a commercial boarding scenario with a team of real flight attendants.
Here's how this is going to go down. Every single one of our Midbus Air test passengers will be issued a ticket, just like this one, with a specific seat assignment. And they will board the plane through our gate right here.
As they come aboard, our cabin manager, Sylvia, will check them in and send them on their way to the correct seat.
The rest of our cabin crew will be stationed just as they would be on a real airplane, assisting the passengers in stowing their luggage.
When the luggage is stowed and everybody's properly seated, the flight attendants will call time and the boarding is complete.
We'll be assessing each of our boarding techniques on two main metrics. The first one being how the boarding method felt to the passengers. So as our test subjects deplane from each test, we will ask them to vote here on how the test felt to them, whether they thought it was great, just okay, or in fact, terrible.
And the second part of the monitoring will be done by me up here with this timer, and that'll determine how long the test took.
What about people who gum up the works, you ask? I'm glad you mentioned that. In about 5% of our ticket envelopes, and consistent across all of our tests, we've included instructions for some of our test subjects to behave just like those passengers who do slow boarding down. The personality types we've identified are parents with tiny children, people who go to the bathroom during boarding and have to swim upstream to get back to their seat, people who sit in the wrong seat, and people with suit coats who meticulously fold them in the aisle before putting them on their luggage. We've literally thought of everything we could imagine. So if we're going to be testing a bunch of different ways to board an airplane, we're going to need an entire airplane's worth of volunteers.
Well, as it happens, we've got some.
They don't seem that thrilled.
No, I don't blame them.
The first test is the control, supposedly the slowest of all systems.
This test is the one that people are most familiar with. It's called the back-to-front method. Check out this graphic. Using assigned seats, once they've loaded business class, then they load the back third, the middle third, and the front third.
Hello! How you guys doing? All right, Jamie, start. Welcome to Midbus Air, flight 3.141597. We are ready to begin pre-boarding. Parents with children and business class passengers may now board the airplane. Step up to the gate and hand over your ticket.
With the clock ticking, the boarding commences.
This is awesome.
And it really couldn't be better.
You guys need any help? Are you okay? All right, welcome aboard.
The gangway and replica plane interior ensure everything proceeds exactly as it would during a standard back-to-front boarding.
If you are seated in rows 20 through 30, you may now board the plane. Rows 20 through 30, board the plane.
Welcome.
The advantages of the replica setup soon become clear. The open-sided structure allows full access to the cameras, and we can really see how the boarding is progressing.
All right, we are now ready to board rows 10 through 19. If you are in row 10 through 19, you may now start to board the airplane.
Once the plane is almost full, familiar pre-flight patterns emerge.
Hello, 2019.
There's a backlog of passengers on the gangway, Passengers in aisle seats have to get up to allow access to the middle and window seats. And inevitably, there's plenty of carry-on luggage, too large to fit in the overhead compartments.
We're gate-checking bags. That's awesome. I have to admit, I was kind of shocked by how much gate-checked luggage there was. But according to the flight attendants, it's pretty average.
There's no space.
Okay, what's your final destination?
Springfield.
Okay, I'll get that tagged.
Okay, thanks.
It's not just excess baggage delaying departure. The wild cards also come up the works in a realistic way. But eventually everyone is seated and the plane is ready for takeoff.
Stop, Davey.
But what's the damage?
From the time that boarding was announced to the time that the last bin was closed, for back-to-front boarding, it was 24 minutes and 29 seconds. Now, that's a fairly common method of boarding, and that'll form our baseline for the other tests.
The time is, of course, crucial for that comparison, but so is customer satisfaction.
Let's see what we got.
All right.
Each positive experience is scored +1, a terrible vote is -1, and each neutral okay is 0, which, for back to front, gives a final tally of +19. But the score and time don't mean anything on their own. Comparisons are required. So, to find out if the myth will soar or crash land, Captain Savage will need to log a few more bumpy flights. Carrie, Grant and Tori are testing the myth, bite the bullet. Supposedly, a bullet made from a fang fragments on impact, leaving no evidence for a forensic pathologist to sink their teeth into.
Don't try this at home. We're what you call professionals.
To assess this ballistics mystery, Carrie, Grant and Tori have made biological bullets for a variety of guns.
You guys ready to bite the bullet?
But before they take on the medical examiner, they want to know, will their bullets even work? Will they have lethal penetration and aerodynamic accuracy?
For our accuracy test, we're going to be at a common standoff distance. And we're going to fire our revolver, our shotgun, and our .308 rifle. And our target? We're going to shoot at ourselves in an alternative universe where the dentistry is questionable.
Do my teeth really look like that? This is a .357 Magnum revolver. We're going to be firing 38 special rounds, giving us a muzzle velocity of approximately 800 feet per second. Going high? Now the plan for our accuracy test is to fire off 3 lead bullets in a row. Oh, nice. That's a really tight groove. And then fire off our tooth bullet and see how far that is from the cluster.
That grouping is the accuracy benchmark.
Okay, we're live.
For the handgun tooth bullet to have a chance to fool the pathologist, it first has to hit the target.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, fire. Swing and a miss. Man.
Carrie's decision to retain the enamel and not smooth the tooth surface has come back to bite her. The poor aerodynamics meant that from just 21 feet, it missed by quite a distance. So, the handgun has fallen at the first hurdle. But what's next?
What I have here is a 12-gauge pump shotgun. It fires rounds at 1,200 feet per second. Going high. Now, unlike the pistol or the rifle, it's not a pinpoint accurate weapon. It hits an area. So, in order for us to call our T-shot accurate, it has to hit the same area as our buckshot. Look at that. Shot him in the nostril. That's a good group. That's about a 10-inch group right there.
That's the benchmark. Let's see what the teeth-filled shell can do.
All right, this is 12-gauge teeth shot accuracy test. Going hot. All right, here we go. Eyes and ears. In teeth. 3, 2, 1. Let's see how close they got to the buckshot. Not bad, not bad. You know what? I think we have to get it to the teeth because they hit in the same area as the buckshot. Yeah, that's a really tight group. That's great.
That's a success. In a weapon designed to fire its shot over a short distance, the teeth more or less match the real thing. And that means, unlike the handgun, the shotgun has qualified for the next stage. But before that, it's Grant and a big gun.
Next up, the rifle accuracy test. We're going to be firing a .308 round out of this rifle at a standard distance of 25 yards. Then we're going to load up the tooth bullet and see how close we can come to that target. Tooth bullet in the rifle in 3, 2, 1.
With over 10 times the power shot of the handgun, the extra powder in the round destroyed the toothed bullet before it even left the rifle's barrel, which is the scenario Grant feared when he came up with his plan B.
See this? This is my secret weapon.
His bullet made of bone.
Safety's off, we're hot.
Looks like Grant's been boning up.
Alright, here we go. Bone bullet in the rifle.
And what do you know? It's slightly off the original, but it's in the ballpark.
We hit it.
Hey, that's actually not bad for this range.
You know what, this is actually pretty promising for the myth. Let's see how the bone bullet does on the penetration test.
Absolutely. Bone bullet.
So far, this myth is looking pretty good. Now, we didn't have much accuracy with the pistol and the tooth bullet. With the shotgun and the teeth shot and the bone bullet with the rifle, we had very good accuracy. So we can say that this is a viable ammunition. But it's time to see how well they penetrate once they hit their target.
So far, Harry, Grant and Tori have tested the accuracy of their bio bullets. The handgun and rifle fans failed at the first hurdle.
Swing and a miss.
But the shotgun shell and bone bullet were a success.
Bad, not bad.
The next question to be faced is, will they penetrate with a lethal impact? So, back down at the gun range to test the bio bullets for a lethal penetration, the guys will once again compare them to the real thing.
For this test, we're taking accuracy out of the equation. We're going to fire at close range into the gelatin. Now, we know that the actual bullets are going to do more damage. Physics tells us they have more mass, they have more power. But the question is, can these crazy bullets actually do enough damage to make them a viable round?
The answer to that question will come if the bone bullet and teeth-filled shotgun shell have enough energy to penetrate the ballistics gel deeper than 4 inches. That's the benchmark experts deem to be a lethal hit, and the benchmark for success in this test.
Woo!
First up is the 12-gauge shotgun with a standard shell.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. It looks like it passed right through it. I saw it hit the back of the bird.
It jumped!
With a muzzle velocity of 1,800 feet per second, the spray of buckshot really packs a penetrative punch.
Exit, 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 exit. They all came all the way through.
I love the shotgun. Let's see what the teeth can do.
The question is, will they match the real thing or at least punch a lethal 4-inch hole?
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
A close inspection reveals that not only did it not match the real round and penetrate clean through, but it also failed to beat that 4-inch benchmark.
1.5 inches.
All right, so even at close range, this is not an effective assassination round.
Yeah, I mean, the regular buckshot passed all the way through the ballistic shell. This only went in a couple inches.
The team decides that while it may not be lethal, it would certainly cause severe injury, and that's good enough to take it on to the next round. Just barely.
Okay, so the shotgun didn't give us that 4-inch lethal penetration that we were looking for. But after looking at the high speed, we're going to give it the benefit of the doubt, because it did give us 6 to 7 hits that penetrated 2 inches. Now, combining that trauma, the victim could potentially be sent to the pathologist's lab.
So the shotgun squeaked past the penetration test by the skin of its teeth, and it's time to up the ante. The massive muzzle velocity of 2,800 feet per second might pack the punch required.
So just like the shotgun, we're going to be firing the rifle from the minimum possible range. And for this weapon, that's 10 feet. Any closer, the pressure wave would actually disturb the ballistics gel.
And it's no surprise when the control round blasts clean through.
Well, then I think it might have done a backflip.
Remember, Grant's bone bullet doesn't have to match that devastating level of destruction because the projectile just has to penetrate to 4 inches to be deemed lethal.
Here we go in 3, 2, 1.
Oh no! It wasn't that far!
That is not a lethal shot at all.
At just 2 inches, it's another non-lethal shot, but Tori isn't surprised because even their biggest bio bullet has a weight problem.
So we just took the shot and it did not go that far into the ballistics gel. But that's not a big surprise, because as we know, kinetic energy is 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. Now, since we don't have the mass or the velocity, we don't have the energy for that tooth to penetrate that deep.
But all is not lost, because back at the shop, the guys are beefing up their bone bullets. The science says that bigger is better. So, with a supersized bone slug, will they finally get the penetration this myth needs?
Now, I made the bone bullet much larger. This is going to give us more mass for more penetration power. Hopefully, this will give us a lethal shot.
And outside in the bulletproof bunker, the proof will be in a fresh ballistics gel pudding.
In 3, 2, 1, fire.
In real time, there seems to be more gel jiggling, but there's only one measure that counts.
Hey, look at that! We have bone fragments 6 inches deep.
Yes, the extra mass made all the difference.
Dude, this is a success.
All right, next step we got to do is test it on our human analog.
All right.
So, the shotgun and now the rifle have passed the accuracy and penetration tests. And that means next up, can the team get away with murder?
For this test, we've set everything up exactly like it would be on a real airplane, from the dimensions of the plane to using real seats. And given the fact that stowing luggage and hand luggage is a very time-consuming part of that process, we're using genuine overhead bins.
We strive for accuracy in all of our tests. That's why in setting this up, we're ready to come out now.
Adam and Jamie already have a back-to-front baseline, but there's a whole barrage of boarding baloney still to come. And next up,
Families with small children in business class may board the plane now.
is the perfect method to contrast with the control.
Test number 2.
And that's no system at all.
Next on the menu is a semi-random boarding method in which people have assigned seats, but we are only boarding in 2 groups. That is business class and everybody else. And you see, I'm kind of curious about how this one's going to turn out. We are going to board all rows, all seats. All rows, all seats may now board the plane. Over there.
Each passenger has an assigned seat, and there are the usual wild cards like jacket folders. But other than that, it's simply first come, first boarded.
We wanted to make sure when we set this test up that people would be likely to behave in the way that they would in the airport.
Can we get some order here? Line up, please. One line, please.
For the random test, it seems to be the case. As soon as I called all seats, all rows, everyone ran to the front of the counter to board the plane.
One line, thank you.
That is exactly the kind of behavior I would expect to see in an airport. It's awesome that we got it experimented.
Aside from the rush to board first, there don't seem to be any issues.
Hi. You my last passenger?
And the passengers found their assigned seats in a surprisingly short amount of time.
So this test was random once first class and parents with small children had boarded, and it came in at 17 minutes, which is pretty quick.
You guys may now deplane.
That's an astonishing 8 minutes faster than the control, but remember, time isn't the only factor. Each passenger gets to vote on the overall experience.
On the last test, they were almost all okay. In this test, they're either loving them or hating them because we're either getting great or terrible.
The random boarding clearly polarized opinion, but despite the significantly faster time, when the votes are tallied, it turns out it was less popular than the control.
This is a stunning result. Random boarding with allocated seats was far quicker and yet a much less positive experience for the passengers. This tells me that there is definitely something to this myth. If random is so much quicker, then back to front is clearly flawed in terms of speed and efficiency. But whether there's a better method that yields a more positive passenger result, I think requires more testing. Shall we?
Next up is what we call the Wilma technique. It stands for windows, middle, and aisle. Once you've boarded business class, then you load those with window seats, then the middle seats, and then the aisle. Seems pretty logical to me.
It's a standard, rarely used technique with a cute, not quite accurate acronym, and it's down to Adam to explain the unfamiliar procedure.
Okay, we are now going to board people seated at window seats. If your ticket has a letter A or a letter F on it, you may board. All rows with letters A or F. I was a little nervous about how that was going to work out, but it seems like everyone's getting it pretty clearly.
As it turns out, with some clear instructions, it's quite simple.
We are now going to board middle seats. If your seat number has a letter B or E attached to it, you may now board the plane.
One of the problems when back-to-front boarding is aisle seat passengers getting up to allow window seat passengers to get to their seats, causing congestion in the aisle. But this method is specifically designed to avoid that. And the result is an even quicker time.
What was the time on that one, Jamie?
14 minutes, 55 seconds.
Nice!
The faster, smoother style is also reflected in the satisfaction score, a fulfilling 102. And that has Jamie convinced of the result.
Wilma is significantly faster and 5 times better in terms of customer satisfaction than the control. For me, that means the myth is confirmed right here. The method in use by the vast majority of airlines is simply not the best available. What we have to determine now is what is exactly the best method.
Well, the straight windows middle aisle or Wilma boarding worked pretty fast, but there's apparently a Wilma method that's even more sophisticated. It breaks it out into windows middle aisle in separate blocks, and it is going to tax all my faculties of being a clear announcer of who gets seated when. They're going to be seated in 10 separate blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Makes me tired just looking at it. All right, Jamie, you can start the timer.
Once again, Adam ushers on business class and families, and then it gets complicated.
The first group to board, rows 22 through 30, but only the window seats. Seats A or F may now board the plane.
Despite the complexity, Adam rises to the occasion.
I feel that this loudspeaker makes me virile and more powerful.
And it all goes swimmingly.
This is